Good morning. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Third Mutual Laguna Hills Board of Directors to order. Do we have a quorum? It appears that we have a quorum. We'd like to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Bunny Carpenter is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to remind everybody to silence your cell phones or anything else that makes noise, and except for your voices. I would like to acknowledge the media. The media is here. Thank you. Can we have approval? Do we have approval of the agenda? Does anybody like to make a motion? Bert?
I'd like to add to the agenda, if I may. We need mutual committee adjustments. There are several that I'd like to make so that we have proper assignments.
What,
If you want to hear them, it would be,
which items are these, Bert? Where do you want to put them?
I would add Steve Leonard as an advisor to M&C.
Which section is, what
It
section?
isn't in here, that's what I'm saying, I want to add it as an agenda item.
Right, what agenda item is it that we're going to add that to?
And we can add that as new or unfinished, I don't,
12J, it'd be 12J
12J,
under
okay.
unfinished.
yeah,
And it would be committee assignment.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else? I acknowledge the media.
Huh?
I acknowledge.
Yeah, but you gotta not acknowledge it. Is there a meeting here?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
We're having a discussion back here. Oh, we'll get over
I didn't hear
it. Okay.
Bill?
Yes. Annette?
At the landscape committee that James did not attend.
Turn your mic on.
Mike,
Yes.
put on the mic.
I apologize. At the landscape committee that John Franco chaired in James Tung's absence, we put on an advisor. Do we need to put that under this too?
I haven't found out what the process is. We have a person that volunteered to be in
Turn
the
your
planning.
mic on.
Why did they put this thing on?
Is that's the lady, she has a lot of experience.
No.
Right.
She will be good at one, so, but I don't know, at the committee, first you gotta say approve.
Oh, all
I
right.
thought, I.
Oh, I think
Brief
I
me-
approve.
brief
You know,
me
I
with
think
the
she has a
procedure.
very good, strong background. She
Okay.
will be access to us.
Doesn't the board have to approve
Right now.
the
yeah.
advisor? So we would like to have her come to the next meeting and then we vote on her?
Okay, yeah,
And then, James, this
No?
was a gentleman.
okay. Next, I guess we'll have to add it to agenda next month, because she's not here today.
I didn't ask her to come because I needed to find out what the process was.
But we can add this discuss item to prove it, because
Okay.
I think she has a lot of a background in landscape, and since she has the zeal to help us, you know, I strongly recommend her. So,
Just to
Yes,
clarify.
her name is
just
Violet Lawrence.
Clarify, okay. The chairman of a committee can make an appointment without committee voting.
Okay,
And that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to bring forth to the board approval the name of advisors for my committees.
okay.
For a vote.
yeah.
And that person does not
So
have
we
to.
have to do is approve, board got approved.
Correct, and that person does not have to be here.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
Okay, so we can
So that
add,
we can add, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I guess only, the other thing is, since I'm being here, because I'm in the hospital for a whole month, so I'm asking Bonnie to report a landscape report, and I will report on the water conservation part. That's a minor modification.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, The
Yes,
person,
Annette?
the person I was going to recommend that John, at the meeting that I attended, his name, I think, was Bill Hatch?
That's Bob Hatch.
Bob Hatch, okay. Oh, architecture, okay, I apologize. Got it. Thank you.
Right. All right, thank you.
Did we get a second on this motion?
Pardon me?
Did we get a second on this motion?
We did not.
Did we have a motion?
You made the motion. All right.
So as amended.
Now that we've discussed it before we had the second, are there any other comments that people would like to make? If not, do I have approval of the agenda?
Repeat the motion.
Motion is to add Steve Leonard to the approval of the agenda. Thank you. As amended. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, are we going to add?
We'll do that when we get to that
Correct.
that particular item on the
When we
agenda.
get to,
Okay,
All right.
always learning.
Okay.
Right. Now we need to vote on the agenda as amended.
Yes.
All those in favor? Or you can just vote on the machine. And I guess I don't vote, but, okay.
And,
9-0, okay. Moving on then to item number 5 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from August 11th and August 15th. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any commentary? Any comments? If none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Okay, I didn't vote this time. There, okay, thank you. You don't let me vote, do you? No. Okay, all right, thank you. Now we're going to move to item number 6. There's a reason we're a little bit, that things aren't going necessarily as smoothly as they could. This is my first time as the chair of this meeting. We come to this meeting with, the board comes to this meeting with very heavy hearts. Our chair and president lost her husband this weekend, and he passed away. Steve Dickens passed away after fighting cancer for a number of years. And our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers are going out to Rosemary. We as a board have spent a lot of time together. We spend hundreds of hours a year together, and we get to know each other really well. And it's hard on all of us when a member goes through this kind of pain. And I know that Rosemary is grieving right now. I know she's grieving it's very hard on her. And if she's listening, or she should know already that all of us will support her in whatever she needs during this time of pain and grieving. I would like to suggest at this moment that we take about a 30-second moment of silence in memory of this. Thank you. A couple of other items that I'm going to make comments on. I wanted to remind everybody, and Rosemary asked me to do this, she put it in the meeting minutes, that everyone should be reminded that the last day to vote for third mutual board members is September 27th. The voting will be counted, the votes will be counted on September 29th, that's a Friday, I believe, at 9 a.m. in the morning here in the boardroom. And the annual meeting of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board will take place on Thursday, October 5th, in which time we will elect new officers to the board. In addition to that, many of you in the audience right now were given a piece of paper if you wanted to speak and to write down what you want to talk about with your name. And if you haven't done so, please do and get them to Leslie over here in the corner. She will collect them, and then when we get to the point of member comments. Yes. Okay. Okay. I was just reminded that only members of Third Laguna Hills Mutual can address the board. So that said, we'll move to item 7, which is the open forum.
I did make a request.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
As an additional reminder, this is the last day for people who wish to serve on the GRF board to get their applications in. They've got to be in by 5 o'clock today. So for people that might be interested in, you can go upstairs to Catherine Lassiter's off desk where she sits, this end of the building, and just ask for Catherine and get your application and then get it in. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. We'll now open the meeting to where members can come and address the board with issues that they would like to talk to us about. Leslie, can you proceed?
Okay, so first up, we have Frank Correa.
Good morning. Frank Correa, 5066 Avenida del Sol. I'm here representing myself as well as some other residents of Third in asking the board to move on recertification of FHA loans. I feel that this would be a benefit to the residents both in getting low refi rates as well as reverse mortgages or home equity loans. The Third Mutual, since its inception until June 30th of 2011, had been certified as FHA mortgage approved. At the board meeting of July 28th of 2011, the board voted 9 yes, 1 abstaining to move forward to the recertification process. After that meeting, there was no other information that I saw about moving forward on the recertification, and then the certification expired September 30th of 2011. Since that time, I've heard comments throughout the village from some members of the board, not this board, but others, saying that the guidelines have changed for FHA loans and that we no longer were able to be certified. That had been true. Changes were made. And then in 2016, Bill HR 3700 was signed. And this allowed communities such as ours to cut through the red tape, and it changed the qualifications of getting certified. So I feel that this would be a benefit to the residents if we tried to get certified as far as getting lower interest rates, as far as getting a reverse mortgage to, say, redo your property or help care for your loved one at home instead of draining your savings account. The information is available. I'm willing to work on a committee, and hopefully that the subject will be discussed, if nothing else. Thanks.
And thank you.
Beverly Miller.
I'm Beverly Miller. I live at 3437 O, and I have more of a question than anything else. I'm a relatively new resident. You just recently got notice that our homeowners fee assessments were going to increase for the coming year. I think $8 or $9 a month, which is not a lot. My question is what the increase is going for. I see a lot of expenditures for remodeling offices and security gates, and I didn't see anything in terms of maybe increasing the landscape maintenance crew, because Lord knows they can't keep up. I recently had an issue in my own condo where we have a break in the concrete rampway, which is a serious safety issue, was reported a month ago, and it still hasn't been taken care of. So my question is, you're raising the rates. Is that some of that going to go to address these types of items? The increased landscape maintenance, which we all need, and then the safety measures, which just aren't being taken care of. If somebody walks up that ramp after dark and falls, you can have a serious injury. It's a hole about this long, and it goes all the way through the concrete. So that's my question.
Did everyone get the building number for that ramp?
34370.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is Marika.
Good morning, Mareka Raima Montañez, 5519 3C. I would like to know regarding our bylaws, what does it say about an unoccupied unit for the last 16 years? Is there any law not to have this kind of a long period for something not to be occupied? And if it is not occupied, is it inspected on a regular basis so there is no deterioration or something? I would like to know about that. And the other thing is, we have an issue with the tree removal. I was told by landscaping that I need to have the people that live in the building to have a petition signed to have it done. I'd like to know if that's right. Thank you very much.
Okay, and next up is Jordy Daly.
Jordy Daly, I'm in Unit 3335 3C. We have a bed bug infestation in Building 3335, Punta Alta. There has been a lack of attention and urgency from the association concerning this outbreak. Unit 1E was infested in May, but not reported. The owner had it professionally treated and did not disclose the problem to his nearby neighbors when asked about it. In early July, the compliance department was contacted by the tenant in Unit 2E about an infestation of bed bugs. He called many times over the next 4 weeks. On August 11, a VMS representative and an employee of Newport Exterminating came to inspect Unit 2E, and the infestation was confirmed. Several other units were inspected, but not all of the adjacent units. When Unit 2F was later inspected, that's the one next to the infested unit, dead bed bugs were found. They had not been reported, and it was not professionally treated. On August 21, Unit 2E was heat treated by Newport Exterminating at the owner's expense. Less than a week later, the bugs were back and are still not completely eradicated. As of September 11th, 2G was confirmed with infestation and was professionally treated on September 16th at the owner's expense. Because all adjacent units to 2E were not treated at the same time, as is a best practice, the bed bugs have escaped to other units, 2F and 2G, and will almost certainly continue traveling through the walls. It is stressful to put your head on the pillow each night and ask yourself, am I next? The tenant in 2E has been dealing with this problem for 2.5 months, and his mother, who is paralyzed, was the first victim of these blood-sucking pests. You are our board of directors. We do not deserve to live like this. I realize that you are not financially responsible for eradicating the bed bugs. However, procedures must be adopted in order to eradicate these fast-moving pests before the entire building and future buildings become infested. At this time, I'm requesting a meeting with the board and the owners of 3335, hopefully in the very near future, to fix this infestation. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Lynn Jarrett.
Good morning, Lynn Jarrett, 4010 1C. I'm president of the Gardenville Association, so I have 2 issues for the board to address. One is I'm getting quite a few inquiries as to what you're doing about earthquake. I was understanding that you did put it in the budget for next year. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. But the residents need to know that because people are starting to talk about earthquake insurance seriously now. The other issue is that of the analog TVs. I think it was Brad, I'm not sure, that said earlier in the year that we probably had to go around and get all these analog TVs towards the end of the year and gather them up. But maybe it was somebody else, but I thought it was Brad. Anyway, we need an answer. Are we going to have to get rid of the analog TVs by the end of the year? If that's the case, are we going to have some kind of trucks come around and pick them up, like a pickup date? And we got to have some organization around that. So we need to know what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, and next up to speak is Judy Nussbaum.
Good morning. I'm Judy Nussbaum, 3185C, and I'm here to talk about Place for Paws, a dog park on Ridge Route. And the city has been as it was under the belief that they own that property and has operated this dog park for the past 17 years. And now it was come to their attention that they are not the owners, but GRF and Third Mutual, 2,200 units in Third Mutual. Now, what I'm going to say might not necessarily be true because I hear all kinds of stories, but I want to bring it to your attention that we were told that we need a unanimous vote of the 200, I believe, units of Third Mutual to keep the dog park open, that they need to agree to keep the dog park open. And the city of Laguna Woods has agreed to take care of the dog park, but first they need the approval of GRF and the 200 units that are in Third Mutual. So what I am asking is that you look into that, see if that is the case, and that we can keep this dog park opened permanently. And if that not be the case, that we can keep this dog park open until GRF can provide us with another area where we can install a new dog park. I feel it's very important that our community have not just one dog park. We probably could use several in our community because I have dogs and I have coyotes in my neighborhood. And dogs like to chase their balls, and you can't throw them in your neighborhood. But also, it is a huge place of companionship for those who have dogs and those of unabled older bodies that, fortunately, I don't have yet, that can't physically walk their dogs. They can take them to a dog park. So I'm asking Third Mutual if they could clear this up for me and the other fellows of the dog park as to what can we do now to get this, either this unanimous vote or work with if we can't keep Place for Paws, we need to have GRF put it into somewhere in our community. Like I say, it wouldn't even be bad to have 2 dog parks. So I'm here to speak on behalf of Third Mutual, helping us do whatever it takes to keep a Place for Paws open, if not forever, at least until we get another dog park established. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Up next is Chris Collins.
Good morning. Excuse me. Chris Collins, 3306Q. I'm here to represent the foundation of Laguna Woods Village. I'm here to share about the continuing efforts of the foundation to assist residents who are in need. What do you do when there are only 4 cans of food left on the shelf, no milk in the refrigerator, and you have no money to buy more? The sad reality is that some village residents are simply outliving their money, but resources are available in Laguna Woods Village. First, the foundation is providing transportation to the South County Outreach Food Pantry on the 2nd Tuesday of the month with the assistance of the Jewish Federation's Silver Streak program. All transportation costs are paid by the foundation. The pantry permits qualified residents to get a week's worth of food once a month. When available, some residents can also get a senior box of non-perishable food. If transportation is needed to the food pantry, please contact social services at 949-597-4267. Please spread the word about available resources and make sure no resident goes hungry. Again this year, the foundation is partnering with South County Outreach and Social Services to provide funding for Adopt a Senior for the Holidays program. Last year, a number of needy residents pre-qualified by social services participated in this program in which each recipient received a small gift as well as a holiday meal. Again, thank you for your generous ongoing support to the Foundation of Laguna Woods.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, and up next is John Sowers, and he is our last speaker.
Good morning. John Sowers, 5377 Avenida Sociega, Unit B. I have two subjects. First one being the RV storage space, and the second one being the recent Third Mutual here requiring a background investigation report, credit report for renters renewing their applications for lease. Last April, I came back from Tucson looking for a space to stow my trailer, and I was told there was no space available. However, recreational vehicle parking areas, rules and regulations dated May the 6th of 2014 says specifically there should be 5 spaces available for whatever and whenever a vehicle needs storage. I was told there were 35 on the waiting list at that time. I just returned again last Thursday requesting a space once again for my trailer to stow. Was told there were 50 currently on the waiting list, whereas there are supposed to be 5 available consistently, constantly. There is a provision in this rules and regulations that provides for a manner to have a second space. And I assume that there are more second spaces available currently or being occupied currently, whereas there are no spaces for a new arrival. Second subject, lease policy. I have a renter who wants to renew her lease. We filled out all the papers, and now we have to conduct a background investigation, which includes criminal, which includes everything with regard to credit, previous evictions, et cetera, et cetera. What in the world are we going to do with an investigation that comes back contrary? Are we going to deny the renewal of a lease? We're going to kick the tenant out? I'd like to have a definition of that because it costs about $30, and I really am not computer literate, nor is my tenant from Russia computer literate to get on the computer and provide this investigation. However, I'm going to go up and attempt it in the computer room at the conclusion of this meeting. That's all I have, but I still note there's no clock up here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The clock's right behind you, right by the doors.
Okay, and we do have a couple more speakers.
Okay? Behind you, turn around.
So
Look on the wall.
next is Julia Dahl.
It's on the podium.
Hi, my name is Julia Dahl, and I wanted to make a request for the motion that, or the item that's already on, it's on the consent agenda. I am in 55152G.
Julia?
I apologize. I
Julia?
didn't realize this was 11A and not for the member comments.
Right.
My apologies.
Julia, you can comment at the time.
Okay.
But you
So
can't,
I-
not for
yeah, I
member comments on
apologize.
anything that's on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that would be it.
That's all. Well, thank you all for coming up and expressing your concerns. I'm going to now turn this over to the board members for responses, but before I do that, a number of the issues that you brought up were actually GRF issues, and I thought I would turn to Brad Hudson to have him answer those issues regarding the dog park, the TV, and the TVs, and the RV lot. Can you do that?
I can. Maybe I'll start with the easy one first. Analog TVs. We are not planning right now to completely eliminate them at the beginning of the year. They're going to have fewer channels available to them because we need to have additional bandwidth to support our internet and cable operations, as well as the new DVRs that we're going to be offering that allow you to record 6 channels at once and allow you to get over-the-top services directly. And so there will be some channels that will be deleted from the analog offering. And so we'll get some more detail out on that. You can also, at some point, probably maybe January 1st of 19, we will probably eliminate analog TVs because they use too much bandwidth. I think each analog channel will support 14 digital channels. And so when you had a lot of analog on there, it really slows down not only your internet operation, but limits the number of channels you can offer digitally. And so that is something we're going to. But you can lease or purchase a device that will allow you to keep your analog TV if that's what you choose to do. So I know we've had town halls on this. We've sent out a lot of information, and we will send a lot more information out to the community about what's going to happen with the internet and cable system moving forward. But really big changes, all really good changes, in that your bandwidth is going to be bigger, your computer is going to be faster, and you're going to have many, many more options for cable TV. So it's all good, and I know that's a concern for residents, but there's no immediate plans to do anything, so we don't need to get too excited yet. But I think down the road, definitely analog needs to go away. Virtually, we may be one of the last cable systems in the country supporting analog. No one else is supporting it. So we have a special population. You know, we have a lot of analog TVs here still, I think thousands. And so obviously when we make that change, it's going to be important to do a lot of planning, have a lot of communication with our residents, and then have logistics right as we try to dispose of those down the road.
Right, Brad, in that sense that some of those analog TVs are very heavy. Are we going to be able to help the residents with that?
Yes, we'll have to.
Yeah, okay.
I was proud owner of the largest analog TV ever made. And I think it weighed about 500 pounds. When I sold my place in Big Bear, I left it there for the residents because I didn't have anybody to help me move it. It was heavier than the refrigerator. So anyway, I'm well aware of that, and we'll support our residents, of course, in taking care of that. I think the next one was the dog park. And it's kind of, I've got it attached as part of my agenda, but I'll go ahead and address it now since the residents have brought it up. It is an ongoing issue, and I think the person who spoke on it correctly identified the issue, which is the dog park was constructed by the city on GRF and Third property. The city was granted an easement for road purposes only at the time the development was approved, and for some reason, 15, 20 years ago, someone decided it was okay to take that easement for road right-of-way and construct a dog park there. It is not, for any number of reasons that I can articulate, but I won't at this time. So what is the answer to this? I think it is there. It's operating. The city had talked about closing it down, but I think there were a number of residents who had concerns, and so they changed their mind on that and have reopened it in part. I think most of the part that is on Third Mutual property is not open right now, and I think that was primarily due to complaints by adjoining residents about noise and odor. I think, and you've probably heard those before. So going forward, GRF has approved an MOU with the city to let them continue operating on their property. That was done at their last meeting, and a similar request has been made to Third, though Third and GRF have very different issues when it comes to utilizing your property. GRF is subject to any number of federal laws relating to their property as a result of their granting public use of their property. For example, the Emeritus program, that's clearly a public use of this private property and would subject them to a number of federal statutes. and they comply with those. On the other hand, Third Mutual does not grant any public access to any of your property. You are a closed, private community, and so it would be highly unusual for you to grant a right of public access to your property, because it would make you subject to these federal laws that you are currently not subject to. And so that's what we're evaluating right now, is how to move forward, protect your insulation from these statutes that could cost millions of dollars for you to comply with, while at the same time, how do we allow the community to have a dog park that we can all enjoy? And so we're working out those issues. I think the city and village dialogue is very positive, and I'm pretty confident that we'll come up with something that will keep that dog park in whole or in part operating, maybe with a different configuration. We've discussed that as well. And then certainly, it's not out of the question, but certainly a GRF issue as to whether that's an amenity that GRF would want to offer to our community exclusively in another location. And we've had very brief discussions about that, but nothing final has been decided. So it's obviously a work in progress. The dog park is open now, and folks can utilize it. But I think moving forward, we're probably going to need a more permanent solution that meets the requirements of everybody involved. So I look forward to working with the community and the city to further that. What was the last item?
RV park.
Oh, there, I guess it's working. The RV park has been obviously an ongoing project. Unfortunately, for many, many years, it's just been not managed properly. And so the facilities have become deteriorated. There's a lot of use there that is, in my opinion, and the opinion of GRF and their council, inappropriate. A lot of the space has been taken up by people with their third and fourth and fifth cars. That was never the intent. There's a lot of commercial vehicles in there and other vehicles that just aren't recreational vehicles. And so we have gone through and we're doing a lot of maintenance. We've added, we're adding cameras and additional security staff. We're slurry sealing RV Lot B right now as we speak. And so that'll be restriped and repaved, and we're kind of reconfiguring the spaces there to become more efficient. But I think it is a good point that it would be nice if we had a few spaces. So if a member here happens to wander back from their home in Arizona and has an RV with them, that they would have a place to park it for a few days until they figure everything out, or to even get a permanent space if they so wish. But because of these other inappropriate uses, we've just overused the facility, and I anticipate in the next several months that we'll have whittled down that use to a place where any member who wants a space should be able to get one. By the way, that's another policy that GRF just recently adopted, which is members first. So before any lessee or occupant or anybody else is going to get a space there, all members must be off the list first. And so that's another policy. It's going to help us address the very concerns that the gentleman raised. But his concerns are correct. I don't disagree with much of what he says, and I am hopeful that over the coming months, we will have addressed all those issues.
Thank you, Brad. Now I'm going to open it up for responses from the rest of the board members. Thank you. Somebody, you got your hands, or did you, do I see?
Is it
that?
on your screen?
Okay.
Request to speak.
Okay, Steve Parsons is first.
Okay, Frank, I'd like to talk to you first about FHA. I will personally look into this and re-review it and see what changes have been made, and we will discuss it as far as reverse mortgages and how it applies to us. Bev, you were talking about increases in the budget. If you look in your packet under item 12G, you'll see ins and outs. I want to remind you that our increase per month only went up $3.60, of which $3 is for employee compensation and wages. You can see how the other 60 cents falls out as you go by. The total overall assessment was $8.56, of which GRF was $4.96. Once again, ours was only $3.60. On the idea of earthquake insurance, this was covered 2 meetings ago, where we actually met with representatives from the insurance company and brokers, and the cost of earthquake insurance for Third Mutual facilities has gone down significantly, and it's about $168,000. We did decide and vote as a board to go ahead and take that out, and it's effective either August or this month. I've been gone for 6 weeks, so I'd have to check to make sure of the date when it actually took effect. But we are covering through earthquake insurance.
Now, Steve, that doesn't mean individual manor owners.
No.
Right.
Each individual manor has to be covered by an HO6 policy. And you have to check in on that. And I would advise you, when you talk to somebody about this, remember there are 6 to 7 different provisions that you have to make an election on. And if you have any difficulty in figuring that out, let me know, and I'll get you in contact with the right people that can walk you through it. But the main thing is the HO6 policy covers interior contents and the built-out that's in there, okay? And that's the homeowner's responsibility, the condo owner's responsibility. We can't do anything for you on that, okay? But we are covering the exterior walls, things like that. So be sure that you contact your insurance agents and ask them about an HO6 policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Bert?
Okay, let me go down the list. Beverly? I think the part that was discussed, we are dealing with a community that's, what, 50 years old or thereabouts? And as we get older, we have a lot of maintenance. And we have struggled to try to maintain a constant assessment and minimize the increases. But we just cannot go against nature. And we have dry rot problems, we have sewer problems, we have water leaking problems, we have lots of problems, okay? And the only way you're going to fix these problems is with money, either spending it on internal staff or bringing in contractors to do the work. So, you know, I would say to the people of this community, you have got to expect assessments to continue to rise. I mean, we just cannot perform miracles, okay? Well, Marika, on the rule of occupancy, as far as I know, we do not have a rule that basically stipulates that the unit must be occupied when somebody owns it. They have the ownership. I think it's a good idea that if the neighbors are aware that the unit has been empty for a period of time, that they inform the board or inform staff, because we do have the right to go into that unit to make sure that things are well. You know, that there aren't leakage, that there are not bed bugs, or so on. So I think from that standpoint, we would solicit the help of people living within the units who are adjacent, okay, and recognize that that's occurring, to let us know. And we had the bed bug issue. It appears that what we're doing is chasing our tail. You know, we do the one unit, and the bed bugs have moved over into an adjacent unit, and this is what apparently has been going on. And the only alternative to the spot solutions of doing a unit at a time would be to decide to tent the entire building and do a, yeah. In essence, by tenting the entire building, we can cover all of the units and take care of the bed bug situation. So I think we'll discuss that with staff. Maybe Brad can add more to that.
Yes, actually, I can. We've been pretty active on this building, and I would dispute much of what the speaker said. We have been to this building many, many times, have inspected many of the units, and with only one actually coming up with live bed bugs, and they pay to treat that themselves. And then we've been out here many, many times, and right now we don't detect any live bed bugs there through the inspection of these 6 units, though there is a lessee there who apparently has been posting signs on mutual property that bed bug infestation. And so we were dealing with a disciplinary case there that I believe may be coming before you. And so there are a number of issues going on here, but I think the greater issue is that under current policy and state law, this is not a mutual responsibility. Interior pests are the responsibility of the member. And so if you wanted to change that policy, you certainly could. Bed bugs need to be treated by a heat process. It's not the same chemical process you might use for, say, wood-destroying pests. It's a different process, involves heat. And so just to give you a sense, to treat this entire building, even though there are no live bed bugs at the current moment, doesn't mean they won't be back, costs about 20 grand. And so I think it's a question for the board as to whether you want to engage in a program for interior pests at a cost of 20 grand for a building such as this. So again, I just leave that at your doorstep.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I believe the board has to address an issue where
Yes.
you have an infestation of the building. Okay, if it's something that's constant like that, we probably need a policy.
Well, if you have
to deal with
laundry
that.
rooms too, maybe they're in the building or freestanding.
Correct.
Oftentimes you may get a transfer there as well. Clearly, those would be your responsibility. And so it just raises a whole host of questions that I don't think we've had to address really, because this is, though not new, but relatively new in terms of its magnitude and hitting communities like this. So, but I think any implication that somehow there's been foot dragging or some sort of dereliction on behalf of the staff here, that's just not true.
Okay. I'd like to come back to the dog park. I know it's a GRF problem. I'm chairman of the architecture committee, and one of the things we are concerned with is land use. And what we're running into here, I believe, is the Davis-Sterling Act requiring that in a given mutual, you must get at least 67% of the vote of the people living within that community in order to give up common area. And what we're talking about in that dog park is common area, okay? So this is why I think, and it's not 100%, by the way, it's 67.5%.
No, for this
For
particular
this one, it's
item, for
100.
example, if the mutual said, you know, we've never had that land, we don't want that land, we can just give it to
Then
the
it's
city.
100%.
Then it takes 100% of, I believe it's those 213 residents to basically sign the deed to transfer that land over. And I think in most circumstances, maybe that wouldn't be a problem, but I think there are some of those residents who consider the dog park to be a noxious use, and they may not sign a deed to allow that to continue.
And by the way, the 213, we have 59 HOA regions, okay, and that's why it's only 200 and so many. If it were the whole mutual, totally all of the third, we'd be looking at 6,104, which of course would be an impossibility, particularly since a no vote by any resident, okay, is considered no. In other words, a negative vote toward the policy. So the other thing is, you know, you said it'd be nice if we had more dog parks. My opinion, it'd be nice if we had more parks, but we can't manufacture lands, you know. So I think, you know, we're just going to have to live with what we've got, and we'd be thankful that we do have at least that area that we can have a dog park. The comment by John on the background and credit checks, I think Bert Baum can probably best handle that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you finished? Okay. Bert Baum.
John, I appreciate your concern. We labored long to come up with this new regulation, and the reason we did it is to protect the whole community. We have had problems, unfortunately, with renters, And this is another way to ensure that the people who live in this community will not cause problems to the other residents. So we have talked to our lawyers about this. This is something that we are entitled to do. And now it's pretty common when you rent anywhere for the landlord to request a background check. Now, it's not as difficult as it seems. You can get a background check, and we can give you the websites. You can get it in a few minutes, and the cost is not really that high, and that only has to be done once every 5 years for a renter at the most. So what we want to do is we realize there's some difficulty. We will help you, and you can do it. And I don't think it's going to hurt anyone really in the long run.
Annette?
I wanted to, morning. I wanted to speak to Beverly about the sidewalk ramp that needs correction. You might have to go back to resident services again, and if you have a smartphone, or just a regular camera, if you have a smartphone, you can take a picture of what you're talking about, bring it down there, and then they can link it to their Xerox copier and print it out for you, and then they can attach it to the resident services request. I have found that to be a very effective way on how to deal with issues like that, because sometimes I think when they see a picture, it's a little bit more real to them. And then the other thing about the landscape, if you're hooked up to the internet and go to the YouTube channel, LagunaWoodsVillage.com. On YouTube, Kurt Ron who's the director for landscape, has his video on the issues that landscape is following. And if anybody in the audience wants to know what's going on or see these meetings or see anything else that's covered, that YouTube channel is phenomenal. If you don't even record if you forget to record something at your house, and you can just get on there. So that was one thing. And then for Marika, about the unoccupied unit for 16 years, basically, when people own a property, somebody else now might be the owner of it that's not of age to move here, and they might have somebody like a realtor come in once a quarter, and it might be at a time that you're not there, to look at the property and basically make sure it's in good running order and then report back to the owner. That's the person's freedom if they want to keep the property and do with it what they'd like. But basically, resident services, we can check with resident services if we know the unit number to make sure that they have the emergency contact in place and everything is the way it should be, and somebody's checking in on that unit, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes board members' responses. I'd like to move to agenda item number 9, update from BMS Director Donna Dwalaby. You waited patiently for 52 minutes, Donna.
52 minutes. I'm Donna Dwalaby, and I'm a member of the Village Management Services Board of Directors. And people still aren't sure what that is. And so I get asked all the time, what in the world is BMS? And basically what we are, we're not like a homeowners association board or a mutual board. We are the board of directors that oversees the management company called BMS. So that's the employees and our wonderful general manager, Brad Hudson, that you've heard from. And our concern is the employees, what they're doing, how they're doing, the work that they're doing. And so we're not involved with the homeowner mutuals. That's for everybody out there that still doesn't know. Our board has been pretty busy. We met 3 times in August. We met on the 16th of August what we do every meeting, we have one of the directors from one of the departments. They come and speak to us about what they're doing, what their projects are, how they're coming along on their projects, what's new, what's different. And on On the 16th, we heard from Brian Gruner, who's the head of the Recreation Special Events Department, and he came and talked to us about all the things that he's doing. You probably remember the 4th of July and Memorial Day programs that he put together. He's doing a great job. He's pretty new, and he's coming up with some really fine new programs for all of us. Then we met on the 30th of August, and at that meeting, we worked exclusively on the handyman issue. There's been a lot of sentiment in the community to have a resident handyman service, and Brad and Lori sent out a survey to all our residents as to what they thought about this idea. There's been a very successful program that's been in place for some time up at Walnut Creek, and that has been, it's very popular, and it's complete, and hopefully they're going to come down, a couple of representatives, and make presentation to our M&C committees about how to do this and make it be effective. But most of the residents surveyed, about half of them said, yes, they would really like to have this service. And I think that the staff says that it'll take about 1,000 people signing up to make it viable. So that seems like something that could happen in the next year, hopefully the few less months than a whole year, but we're working on that. And I know so many residents here live alone, especially our ladies who are alone and they have nobody to help them take out heavy boxes or turning a mattress or changing a light fixture, hanging a picture, all those kind of things. And so our handyman service would be able to do those things, and it would be a fee-for-service kind of thing. It would be a chargeable service, not a free service, just so you know. And on September 6th, in our meeting, we heard from Kurt Ron, who's the Director of Landscape, and he did a fine presentation at GRF meeting last week, I think. And he also came and made the presentation to our group. And as indicated by one of our directors here, it is available on YouTube. This is an area that I've had the most questions and comments from members, what's going on with landscaping. And one of the things that I learned from Kurt that never dawned on me before, it should have, it seems so obvious, people say, you know, for years our landscaping was just fine, and now it's like a jungle. I can't see out of my windows. There's vines growing everywhere. And, you know, I see that, oh, yeah, that's there. And the hillsides are growing over on the sidewalks and out into the street. And it dawned on me, we were in a drought for, I think, 7 years. And we weren't allowed to use much water. So for all those years, I've had people say, our landscaping was pruned. Well, it wasn't pruned, it just didn't grow. So we didn't have any landscaping for all those years of drought. And then the rains came and everything flourished. We're like a rainforest all of a sudden. So we have plants growing where there were never plants before. And then there's been other issues with employment and so forth. All that to say that Kurt's assured us that by the end of October, everything should be up to date. We've even got crews working on the weekends now to get everything caught up to date and done. There's been a lot of internal problems. And if you go to that YouTube, you can see what it's all been about. But we're on it, guys. Staff, we want to always give our kudos to staff. Judy at, let's see, from Cul-de-sac 222 said, we love, love, love the automated gate system at gates 5 and 6. It makes it much easier and feels more secure. The new Laguna Wood website, awesome, awesome, awesome. These are comments made by residents about improvements. Chuck Holland and others have done a beautiful job. It's classic, professional, and very user-friendly. There's more access to departments and people now by email. Very good. And I think the topper comes from a resident, excuse me, I have a little grip. Okay, VMS superstar, Jose Velasquez. Dear Brad, this was a letter sent to Brad. Says this letter is to highly compliment landscaping landscaping, so you see we've got both sides of the landscaping issue. This letter is to highly compliment a landscaping team under the direction of Jose Velasquez. My manor had not seen a gardening team like this since Frank's retirement well over a year ago. Leadership and organizational skills are required to efficiently lead a super-performing, highly energized team like Jose's. He has strong supervisory demeanor, and it is evident that his men worked hard under his leadership. They worked all together, hauling, trimming, pulling out overgrowth, raking and blowing. No one worked less than any other. Everyone worked hard. And she said she has had experience in leading boards and companies and directing training. And so when she says this man is the leader, you can be assured that it comes from a knowledgeable source. She talks about how Jose managed his crew professionally, worked right along with his men. They worked hard, followed his direction. Had another gardener who seemed to be his lead man named Salvador. Jose continually walked and supervised the area, checking to see that all gardening was done correctly and nothing was left unfinished. He didn't hesitate to pick a shovel up or a rake, a blower, and work right along as part of his team. He is courteous and open to responding to my questions. He knows his plants and how to prune. Jose is extremely positive about his job and Laguna Woods. She says she understands they usually work at Gate 3, but because it was Saturday, there's our weekend workers, they were working near her place there. Oh, how she envies the homeowners at Gate 3 that have Jose and his team all the time. They're truly lucky, lucky, lucky. In her opinion, his best and highest use would be to train other, he meaning Jose, his best use would be to train other team leaders to be as proficient and skilled with people and workers as he has certainly mastered these traits during his 20 years at Laguna Woods. And she says, Brad, if you have gold medals, shower Jose with them. He's a credit to your staff and deserves recognition. One very happy homeowner, Jose's mother. Not really his mother. Little levity there. Anyway, that's, so our landscapers are working very hard and diligently. They're working all weekend. And hopefully we'll be all caught up by the end of October. And that's my report.
Thank you, Donna. Does anybody on the board have a question for Donna or anything that you want clarified or?
No, okay.
Well, thank you, Donna. We can move to agenda item number 10, the CEO's report.
I'm going to roll through this rather quickly. I know you have a huge, huge agenda today, and part of that is your budget adoption, and I did want to thank your board and staff and the community. It's a rather elaborate process that has a lot of meetings and a lot of work involved, and I know the community and this board worked very hard to put this together, and so I thank you for your assistance. I did want to follow up briefly on the dog park because I articulated a lot of information there, but probably the one thing I didn't articulate is the easiest short-term solution is probably, and again, I have no approval of this whatsoever, but I know residents are concerned, is to kind of scoot that down more off of third property and onto GRF property. That's probably the easiest short-term solution, is just to nudge it down so it's on GRF property, which doesn't have the same issues that you have, and as a side benefit of getting it away from those residents who some of them don't like it much anyway. So I think that is the easiest short-term solution. There are others, and there are other long-term solutions that could even be better. So I just offer that up for those in the audience who I know are concerned about that. I just want to share a couple things. We're really rolling on the on waistline remediation right now. We started really going in earnest about the beginning of July. I think we've done 19 buildings so far, and they're just plowing through the community, getting those waistlines taken care of. And so I think that's a huge, huge effort for us, and one that's going quite well. Lynn left, but we've got all kinds of Garden Villa stuff going on in every form and fashion, and so very, very happy with that. I know a new employee, actually an old employee who's come back, Velny, has taken the Garden Villas as her own, and I'm told, Bert, she's doing a great job. So I'm very happy with that. And then on the LH21 beam replacements, we have a number of those going. And I had some really cool dry rot pictures. I don't know if they'll be able to bring them up or not, but I'll ask. Can you bring up the dry rot pictures? And apparently not. But oh, there they are, right there. Okay. See how those come up on screen pretty good. There's a nice little beam. Now go to the next one, Leslie. The last one's the best. So you can see these beams are rotten. They're pretty much gone. And then the last one is the best one. Oh, you only had two. They didn't give me the good one. Doggone it. That's okay. But you can see here that these beams, structural elements of these buildings are really almost gone. And so we will continue the beam replacement program. It's an expensive effort. And one that is going on in earnest right now. I wanted to also let the third board and particularly the Gate 9 residents know that you're going to start seeing the information from El Toro Water District on their recycled water distribution project, which is coming later in the year. But we really want to get information out so you know what's going on, know what to expect. It'll be disruptive. I don't think there's any question about that when they're, digging trenches in the middle of the road and placing the purple pipe in there. It's disruptive. But they're very good at this. They've done a lot of it, and they should move in and out pretty quickly. And hopefully at the end of the day, you get a nice new road to go along with it. So I think there's a lot of positives and a little less on your water bill as well. So that's always a good thing. And doing something good for the environment is just a bonus. So all those things, you'll be hearing much more about that. It'll be a very aggressive public information campaign for those Gate 9 residents that really know what's going on. We'll follow up later in the 5-6 area. While it's mainly in United, it will affect the third residents who live in that area as well, because they'll be in those roads putting those purple pipes in as well. So we'll get information out to those residents as well. Probably won't hit you too much, Susie. You could probably just slip out Gate 6 and it won't bother you a bit. But if you have to get out Gate 5, it could be a little trickier. So there you go.
Thanks, Brad.
I wanted to follow up on Clubhouse 5 Fitness Center. It is, I should say, fitness room. And this is the room that used to be the billiards room at Clubhouse 5. It is now going to offer Pilates and yoga and stretch and all kinds of classes up at Clubhouse 5, as well as we're building a new cycle studio there. So those who are into spinning or cycle classes, you'll be able to take that right at Clubhouse 5. So I think for the most part, third residents have had to go down to Clubhouse 1 to take classes. I mean, that's just, I think, the way it works. And so we want to bring something to third so you can take classes right there in your own community. And so we're very excited to open this fitness room that's going to have a boatload of classes. We've already got a bunch of stuff scheduled, and I think you're going to find that to be very convenient and work well for your workout schedule. And then I got a couple of events I wanted to talk about. We're having a luau. It's kind of an odd luau at Pool 2 on the 23rd, starting at 5 o'clock. And how this works is kind of dovetailed with our dive-in movie. And so, which is kind of more of a kid theme thing, but we'll have our luau, kinds of Hawaiian food and fun and entertainment, and then we'll start the movie, which is going to be Moana, which is sort of a Hawaiian kids. And so you can swim and watch the movie and eat popcorn and Cokes after the luau. So we're putting those two things together, which is kind of an interesting concept. I don't know how that's going to go. The last one of these sold out. So I'm suspecting that this one's going to sell out as well. So if you're interested in luau and swimming and watching a movie, particularly with grandkids or something, this would be a perfect event for you.
Do they roast a pig?
I don't know. I think we're just going to ship one in.
Okay.
And then the other event that we're pretty pumped up about is our Hoedown, which is going to be on November 3rd. And this is over at the Equestrian Center, and it's going to have Western music and Western food. I'm not sure about this, I haven't signed the contract yet, but it's also going to have a mechanical bull.
Oh, boy.
Any residents that
Do
want
we
to
have-
ride that, we'll be needing a waiver for
I was
that,
going to
by
say,
the
do we
way.
have you increased the liability
Yeah,
insurance?
I think maybe we're going to have some special rodeo folks come and do that. I'm not sure we're going to make that available to residents or not. It seems very inappropriate in my mind, but who knows? We got to energize a recreation crew, but we're going to have roping and rope twirling, rope tricks. We're going to have somebody teaching folks how to throw a rope, and we're going to have jumpies and food, and it should be a lot of fun for both residents and then also to bring their grandkids along as well. So we're excited about the hoedown, which is on November 3rd, 5 to 9. And then we have a number of events going on at the Performing Arts Center, so jump in on those. And I'll close with the handyman program and thank Donna for talking about that. I received a number of responses from residents. I want to thank them, about, I think, 2,600 or 2,700 responses to the survey. It was about 50-50 on whether they thought it was a good idea or not, but it's a very small segment of our population that's needed to make that work. It's almost like an insurance policy where you would pay a fixed amount for so many visits for the entire year, and it could be something as simple as maybe turning a mattress or putting a leaf in a table, to something a little more complicated like making a repair or something. So it's just a whole array of services. You get so many calls, and I figure we need about 1,000 manners to sign up to make it a viable service, and I think the response indicated that would be achievable. And so I look forward to meeting with Bert and his M&C committee, and also with United's as well, to work through this and see if it's something we want to offer to our residents. So with that, I would answer any questions that you have. I saw Bert raising his hand to ride the mechanical bull, so I'm going to get his waiver first.
John, did you have a question you wanted?
My question to Bert was, on the dog park, isn't that an M&C issue, and shouldn't we take that up?
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk to Brad about it.
No.
Well, I think right now it's a real estate issue, and whether, I think that you certainly, your committee would be fine, but it's probably really a GRF, CAC issue, if the community wants to add that amenity. Now, certainly, Third and United could decide that they want to offer that kind of amenity themselves within their mutuals, but that's never really been the way we've approached these kinds of things in the past.
Brad, I would suggest that we have a mechanical cow, not a mechanical bull. The liability
Is it much less?
I can see we're going to milk this for all it's worth.
Right.
Thank you, Brad. Very comprehensive. We appreciate it. I'm going to move to the consent calendar. I'm torn between having us stand up for about a minute. Why don't we all just stand up for a minute? We've been sitting here for an hour, and in 15 minutes. Why don't we just sit up? Just stretch a little bit. Okay. Hard on the body.
Recent report was that people who stand up every half hour live much longer.
That's right. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, sitting in front of the TV for hours at a time will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, folks, I think we're ready to reconvene here.
Sodium levels of that until that becomes steady. It's mostly a chemical thing? No, but it is because of the infection cost the brain. Brain doesn't, she has.
I'm going to move to agenda item number 11, consent calendar. I'm going to read this. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees, and will be enacted by the board by one motion. In the event that an item is removed from the consent calendar by members of the board, such items shall be subject to further discussion and action by the board. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve this consent calendar as is.
Okay, do I have a second? Do we have any discussion? Do we have, I believe we have a member that would like to come up and speak. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Julia Dahl, and this is the right country.
Is your microphone on? Or are you?
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's on. I can hear you now.
Sorry, it's kind of far away. So it's in regard to one of the items on the consent agenda, 55151G. And I am the owner of 2G, which is directly above it. And there's been some confusion in terms of, for myself and my husband, when we were communicating with the Manor Alterations Department, as far as what the location was, and also the specific type of unit that was going to be installed. So based on what we understand that the committee recommendation is, we would like to request to remove it from the consent agenda and go back to committee so that there could be more discussion on the type of unit. And the reason this is for an HVAC installation that would be for an outdoor unit with a condenser and blower that blows vertically. And what we have said, and really from the get-go, was that, we were trying to understand the difference between the two, because the unit next to ours has a unit in that same location, the one that it looks like the committee is recommending it be installed, that has a horizontal hot air exhaust type, not the vertical exhaust. And our request would be for that, for a horizontal, so that the exhaust from the unit would not be disruptive to our unit. The noise, the dust, the hot air to our bedroom and deck, which is directly above it. It may be more disruptive to the unit below us, in terms of their, maybe that's what they feel, but they're the party that's receiving the benefit of the variance if it's approved. And we just cannot understand why, if there's no material cost change, effectiveness change, or anything like that, and it would have less of an impact on us. That's what we would like to, have the committee see if they could amend the recommendation to be from a unit that's a vertical blower to a horizontal. In addition, I think we've come to terms with the fact that this is probably going to happen. So if it helps, I mean, if it was a matter of knowing that would be the type of thing that would be installed, we would withdraw our objection, right now. And I don't know if that makes a difference or not for the board to know that.
Thank you. Bert, would you like to make a comment on that?
Yes. The committee voted unanimously when we were out there to allow the installation of the air conditioner as proposed, or the condenser. Everybody has a drawing? Have you seen the drawing?
I just saw it this morning, yes.
Yes. Okay, and the unit that is being installed indeed does blow air upward, but it is not anywhere near an open window. That's number one. Secondly, the noise will be extremely low. We checked the dB rating of the noise, and it is going to be quieter than a lot of those window or wall air conditioners that exist within the building. So we couldn't see a noise problem as well. I would suggest that if there is that much concern about the type of air conditioner, that you talk to the neighbor below you and see if they would consider a horizontal fan.
May I?
But they did already install a lot of the, they came through the wall with piping, and it would be a cost item to them over, to try to move that from that point.
And is that typical that they should have already? I mean, is that a factor that we should consider if they've already gone ahead and done that work process?
They probably should
in
not have.
advance that the variance had been done?
Right. They probably should not have.
So I guess for me, I don't know
Yeah.
if that has bearing, in terms of that
It
cost.
does, it does. But I would really suggest that if you want to talk to that neighbor and come to some agreement, where they're willing to make that move, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, the committee was unanimous. We don't see any problem. And we don't believe there will be a noise problem. We don't believe there will be a hot air problem.
Did the committee look, though, at the vertical versus the horizontal and feel that the
We have seen-
vertical was a better option or the same type of option?
I don't know enough about the vertical,
Because-
whether or not they're even quieter or not, and whether or not they're
Well,
as
I think the
efficient.
big difference for us is that the horizontal units blow everything outward away from the building, and the
Agreed.
vertical's blowing up. And just on the one point that you made, which is true, that the noise of the wall units, in terms of maybe the decibel level on that, that might be true for the occupant of that unit, but it's maybe not true for somebody who is, like, I wouldn't, on the second floor, experience the noise of the first floor wall unit, but I will now have a new noise level that I didn't have before with an outdoor unit blowing up. So I don't know if you can just compare the straight decibel level, from my point of view. So I guess the bottom line for us is that if it is not a change in material effectiveness or cost, and it's just something that would make it more or less of a negative impact to us, then it's confusing why it wouldn't be considered.
Okay.
So,
As I'm saying, from a noise standpoint, the dB level is extremely low. The unit is not directly under even the fixed portion of the window. So that when you take a look at the distance from where the air is blowing upward, it's quite a few feet.
and one thing too is on that, because I just looked at that unit, next door to the placement of where that unit would be, there is another outdoor unit that has the horizontal blower. So that one was also approved by variance probably at an earlier time. And I guess all we're asking for consideration is that same type of unit, if it would serve the needs of the other owner.
Okay, I would say from our standpoint, the horizontal or the vertical will be fine.
Okay.
Right now, the alteration request was for the vertical.
Right.
The board, or the committee rather, has seen fit to approve because we see no problem.
Okay. Well, and
So
again,
that if
as
you want to
said,
work it
though,
out
if the-
individually with the owner,
Mhm.
okay, and see if you can convince them to switch that to a horizontal unit, we would have no objection.
And I would have no objection if it was a horizontal blower. So what
But-
would be the
but we're-
best procedure for me now? Is it to talk to the other owner then?
That's correct.
Okay. And then will it be removed from the consent agenda for now?
I don't believe so. In other words, the board has already voted the committee voted unanimously, and I suspect if this went back to committee, in fact, I'm pretty sure, that they would again approve.
That they would approve it, but
They
they
would
would,
approve the alteration as it exists today.
okay, even though, as you said, that there really is no objection from the committee standpoint, whether it's horizontal or vertical?
That's correct. That is correct. So I would say take it up with your neighbor, okay? See if you can work something out. We have no objection to that whatsoever. But-
Okay.
But I would leave this on the agenda today.
Okay.
That's my recommendation.
John?
I make a request that we remove this item from the consent agenda.
Repeat that again?
I would like this item removed from the consent agenda.
Why?
And I would ask Laura to bring down a HVAC expert to discuss it with us from staff.
So you want to amend do you want to make a motion on that effect?
Make a motion, we remove this item from the consent agenda and discuss it here if they can bring, Flora can bring down an HVAC.
John, the staff has already recommended approval. We're following through with that approval, so I don't understand.
But we
Your-
didn't have the affected manner there that would have influenced us.
Do I have a second?
No, I think we heard this objection at the committee's meeting, the last committee meeting.
When we were at the, may I speak? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When we were at the site to look at this, we did have the VMS person with us and to review this. So we already did the step that you're requesting.
But I wasn't aware that there was such a thing
I
as a
understand that.
vertical and a horizontal.
I'm just advising you. And right now, what we've advised is because it was unanimously passed, if she would like to take this up with the owner of 1G, she has that opportunity. And if suppose there is an extra cost to put it in horizontal, if she would like to absorb that cost and go back to that owner, that's at her discretion. All we're saying that we did not have a problem with what we did as a board.
As a committee.
As a committee.
Do I still haven't gotten a second from John's motion to amend. Motion fails for lack of a second.
Okay.
Okay, we're back
Yes.
to the original motion. Do we make a motion to pass the consent calendar as is?
Don't we have to vote on
Yes.
Yeah, you're ready to vote.
We do.
There was another speaker, though. I don't know if he is still here and if he chooses to speak, and that was David Gilbert. Before we vote.
There he is.
Thank you. I really don't have much else to say, except for that we're willing to work with the owner. So I'll take it up with her later, and we'll talk about the options.
So you're the neighbor
Oh,
that's
yes,
putting
I'm
in
sorry.
the HVAC system?
Yes, I am
Okay.
the owner.
Okay.
551.
Well, that's good. Are you two can converse about that and making it horizontal?
Yeah, we can.
I guess my question is if it's approved on the consent agenda, if there's specifics attached to that of the what, then how does this conversation come into place? Right.
Bert, do you want to comment on that?
Are you willing to put it in?
Well, no, we want to look at the situation in general, and understand the costs,
So
et
then no
cetera.
changes to the
Right.
conditions?
So,
I think if it can just be worked out between the two of you, it would be fine with
We
us.
just talk. We
Great.
don't need to be involved.
All right. Well, thank you. I hope you can work it out. All right, so have we taken,
So we're
we've
back
taken
to-
the vote, and the consent calendar is passed as is?
Director Zalon did not vote.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm not supposed to vote unless it's a draw. All right, moving on to item, I guess it would be 12A. Entertain a motion to increase assessment late charges from $20 to $60. Resolution, initial 30-day notification requirement for member comments and suggestions has been satisfied.
Can I talk?
Yes, you may. Bert.
We have a whole bunch of these now, 30-day ones. I'm not going to read the whole resolution. It was read at the last meeting, but I'll just read the critical paragraph. Now therefore be it resolved, September 19th, 2017, that the Board of Directors hereby approves an increase in the late charge for unpaid assessments from $20 to $60 per month, and the effective date of the new fee amount will be January 1st, 2018. I move.
I second.
All in favor? We're going to vote?
Well, are we going to
Or are
vote?
we going to vote on each one of them, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been seconded. Go ahead, Jules.
I am extremely strongly against the increase from $20 to $60 a month for almost anything, and I'll tell you why. We act as a board. We are, we are the community. The members of our community have a relationship have a relationship to the community, and we speak for the community. And frankly, there seems to be no legitimate justification for tripling an administrative cost because of a late fee. You want to increase the cost from 20 to 30 bucks. That makes a certain amount of sense. There may be some administrative costs. Fees go up because everything goes up. There's an inflation factor. But what we're really doing is telling people that when they are late, they're really going to have it stuck to them. I think it's punitive. I think it creates the very worst relationship between the individual members of the community and the board and the community itself. I want to feel and I do feel that this is a terrific community, and I want to feel a connection to it, that we are, that the community, that the board has a nurturing element in it. What we're doing is essentially saying to people that if you're a couple of days or a couple of weeks late, we're really going to stick it to you, and I think it creates a very bad impression. The few bucks that we're going to make on an increased late fee is not worth the price we're going to pay to have a member feel just miserable and badly about his relationship. It reminds me something of how people come to, well, for example, traffic court for that matter, and are treated badly. That is the person's relationship, not just to traffic court, but to the law, because this is the basic level at which people are connected, touch the law and are connected to it. I think it's important that people who come before courts, I think it's important for people who come before boards to feel that they're being treated with respect and with dignity, and tripling a fee is punitive, and I'm against it.
Bert Baum?
Jules, I recognize your concern. I don't think that we are a cruel, heartless board. The reason why we're increasing it, well, there are a number of reasons. One is it hasn't been done for a number of years. And two, as you realize, some people avoid paying their assessments. And what we have a problem is to make sure that the assessments are paid. We spend a lot of time in closed meetings on these kinds of problems. Actually, we can charge, according to our CC&Rs, as much as 10% of the delinquent assessments. So that's about where we are, actually a little less. So what we want to do is just encourage people to pay assessments. And some people feel that they don't have to pay on time. And we want to encourage them to pay on time so we can avoid these problems. And that's simply why we're doing it. If people have some real problems paying assessments, we can handle that otherwise.
Okay. Bert Moldow?
I intend to also vote for this motion. There are people that are habitually late. We have provisions within this community where they can make payments automatically and would resolve that problem, particularly if they have a memory problem. Okay? And of course, there's always the case where somebody has a purpose or a reason, a valid reason, why they could not or were not able to pay. They were away for the month, okay? Whatever, but they can come before this board and appeal. And so there is a method of appeal to make matters right, as you're looking for. But I think, I agree with Bert. You know, we have got to be able to deal with these habitual late people. It's costing this board money. It's costing the community money.
Bonnie?
Well, I'm for this too, and you know I'm very conservative, and I don't feel like we're sticking it to the members to pay this. I really believe it's a preventative measure, okay? If I get a bill and it's gonna tell me that I have, $60 late payment, I'm gonna make sure I get it paid on time. And in the past, we had, I think it was as little as 10, I think, at one time, and people just didn't pay it. And at that time, our previous management company didn't even think it was worth to collect it. So, we're trying to change some of our policies so that we can get a much better response and that we don't have to have these long executive meetings for people that don't pay their bill.
Thank you. Annette?
I think that this is respectful of the members that do pay timely. I also think it's respectful for the people that we hire here at VMS in finance, because when we ask them to enact budgets, we are counting on that money coming in, that revenue, in order to proceed with the things that this community needs. And we do give each member a 15-day grace period. That's my 2 cents.
If there are no further, James?
Well, I agree with the rest of the board. We need that the member to pay. However, I think that, before we start to execute this policy, perhaps the staff can set up helping ways. For example, if you can get your bank to pay automatically, that problem goes away automatically. So we probably can send a note to say, if you have problem, we'll be willing to help you to set up this automatic way to avoid the $60. Thank you.
Annette?
We do that now. We do that now, James.
Yeah.
We do have those things, and people can go on and figure out how to do all that online.
Bert Baum?
I was just going to second that. That's how I pay my assessment.
Yes.
Any, Steve?
Call for question.
Call for question? Okay, we take a vote. All. Somebody hasn't voted yet?
Director Carpenter. It's showing that you have not yet voted.
Okay, press it again.
There we go, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Motion passes. 12B, entertain a motion to increase lease rush fee from $50 to $100, resolution. Initial 30-day notification requirement for member comments and suggestions has been satisfied. Bert?
Here again, I'll just read a few sections of this. Whereas often due to various circumstances, staff is asked to rush processing of a lease application and has not charged for the service in the past, and the new fee of $50 was determined by board members to be insufficient. And now, therefore, be it resolved on September 19th, 2017, that the board of this corporation hereby increases the rush processing fee of lease applications from $50 to $100. I so move.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Do you have any discussion? No discussion, Jules. Okay. Okay, we take a vote. Thank you. Okay, passed 9-0, 9-0. Item 12C, entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the plug-in electric vehicle and golf cart policies and procedures. Resolution, initial 30-day notification requirement for members' comments and suggestions has been satisfied. Do I have a second? Second, Annette. Do we have some discussion? I would like to make a change, or at least there's a problem with the resolution, actually. That we had a statement in there that had been removed, I think, twice now, in July and August, and it still got through. And that's on item section 7.14 of the, that's page 4 of the resolution. And it says basically, fines for violation of 7.13 PEV are as follows. First offense, $240, and requires the resident to purchase a PV decal. We struck that back in July, and I think Bert Baum said he struck it again in the August meeting. So that statement should not be there.
Yeah, my apologies, that's a Scrivener, so we'll make that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any further comments on that? Okay, Bert?
This is a very long.
No, just a second.
I would like to
Oh, I'm
propose
sorry.
that we table this motion. I find that there's a confusion in the motion or with regard to golf carts and electric vehicles. Okay, that in essence, if you read 7.1.3 and look at the fourth paragraph, it says resident vehicles that are battery electric powered golf carts may be connected to mutual common area electricity upon payment of the electrical use fee set by the board. Okay? The electrical use fee is for EVs. There is a charge for golf carts. Okay, it's an annual charge. Okay, but these are two separate charges that are here. And I think we have some confusion about who gets a sticker, how is a sticker appended. I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues that are confusing when you read this.
Is that, do you think that's a policy issue? Or do you think it's
I think we
actually
just
the
got to clarify it. I think we know what the policy is, but I think the way it's phrased.
So we had a discussion about 3 or 4 months ago about separating this out.
Correct.
Into a different, actually not even this resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
And the only problem I see with this, I do not know what compliance is going to do with this and security while we go through this process one more time. My only suggestion was that we come back with another resolution and take this out of here and put it where we think it should be.
Yeah, so for that reason, I'm requesting that we table this.
Do you want to table it? So you want to suspend compliance and security from taking any action on fines for that period. It's going to be whenever you get back to this, and then you're going to be another 30-day initial period. It may be confusing. I don't think it's confusing to compliance. They've got direction here on.
Well, I think we have a sticker problem, for instance. I am not sure that we have stickers identifying electric vehicles as being the same sticker, or even if we have stickers for the golf carts.
Right, and I think you've raised a whole nother level of issue that will probably be in the vehicle and golf cart resolution if you go out and look at the policies and procedures. But I think that's going to be a whole nother discussion that we're going to have to disassemble some of this and reassemble it in a more logical fashion. My only concern, my only concern is that we did this, we've been at this since May. We did this so that compliance could start putting some teeth in their enforcement, because they were just handing out warnings to people about extension cords and battery chargers, and unattended extension cords and battery chargers. So I personally, I would rather see it left in here as this, and then we'll come back one more time. I think we've been at this is about the 4th or 5th iteration of this year already. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Got Annette and then Bunny, okay?
Excuse me. We have been working on it as the chair of the Garden Villa Golf Cart Parking Task Force. Excuse me. I'm sorry. As chair of the Garden Villa Golf Cart Parking Task Force, we were able to, we selected as a pilot the 14 golf cart building, and they were able to do away with the extension cords, and they were able to lift up the chargers 6 inches off the ground in order to comply with the building codes. And most of them chose to do that a very simple way with a cinder block. And then they were going to, at the Garden Villa meeting, spread the word out to other Garden Villa buildings. Now, that was the first issue to deal with this particular resolution of the first of the fines for the golf cart extension, for the extension cords and then for the chargers being 6 inches off the ground. But as far as the decal for the golf cart and what to do with that, I think we need to look at that in our parking we were going to look at that, but as far as moving forward, like you said, this can always be amended, or that could be like another breakout in the future. This can go forward, I think, the way it is. My thoughts.
Okay, Bunny, you had a comment?
Did we approve that by consent? I mean, I wasn't at the finance committee. It seems like we passed that up.
Didn't come.
11D,
It didn't.
E, and F.
Right, it did not go through finance.
So, but what did,
We're on 12C.
you're on 12C, what happened to 11D?
They were all part of the consent calendar under 11.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that because of the way it's written on here.
Yes, it was.
And I had comments on all of them.
Well,
And not to object to it, okay? But I think that when we approve funding on budgets, that it needs to be written in the notes, in the minutes, that we approve this based on the budget for planning purposes, because I know there's a lot of confusion, about the matrix and staff about when these things are approved. They think the money's approved. They think the purchase is approved. And so I think that when we approve these things, we need to make a statement that this is approved for the budget, but when the purchase is made, it needs to follow the procedure of the matrix and our governing documents.
now, is this, Bunny, is this something that, how do I say this? Is this something that you would want to discuss every time that we had one of these items in an agenda, or is it?
It's something that we need to start following a procedure
And verifying that it's being
and
followed?
verifying that basically that it's for budget purposes only.
So basically putting it under the consent calendar, grouping it with manner alterations and variances is not serving the purpose that you would like to
Right.
see happen.
That's,
It's probably, that's a sidebar issue to what we're voting on this motion, but what do people think about that? Would you,
I think that needs to be taken up and talked about before the next meeting.
okay,
But I don't think it's germane to what we're doing right now.
that's correct. Okay, good. Annette?
On the 7.1.
I asked to speak.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. On the resolution, 7.13, plug-in electric vehicles, PEV, on the fourth paragraph that starts with resident vehicles that are battery electric powered, it says golf carts. If after the word powered, we insert PEVs or golf carts, may connect to mutual common area electricity upon payment of the electrical use fee set by the board.
Yeah, and I think when we go back and look at this, we're just going to have to clean this up
Okay,
again. we're going to have to, and
Right.
it may be just that do we call it the plug-in electric vehicle policy and then the golf
think
cart
so.
policy and just separate them both out? Okay?
Thank
Any
you.
other comments on this motion?
We
Yeah.
never received a second for it, just an FYI on the motion itself. To table it, we did.
No. we're
To
not
table, we did not. That was the last motion from Bert, was to table.
I couldn't tell whether, see, this is where I get confused. I'm not sure that it was a motion or it was just part of the discussion. And where do you draw the line? And let's say I make a motion, and I didn't hear I make a motion.
Okay, so there was no motion then
There
to
was no
table it?
motion.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Bert?
I just want to say, as you have pointed out, we've been going over and over this, and we realize there's certain weaknesses and that we will correct. But we've already instructed our security staff to start handing out warnings and to follow up on this. So this is already in motion. And I think we don't want to leave the security with the problem that they're handing this out and they're all geared up to solve what we think are some really serious safety issues, and then to say, no, wait a minute, let's stop on all this. If it's really, and we agree, serious safety issues involved, then we should move ahead with the understanding that we will go back and clarify some of the issues that were brought up today. Therefore, I think we should vote on this.
Call the question.
Just one last comment, that there are still plenty of chargers on the floor and extension cords. I was in a building yesterday.
Yep.
I believe it was 3342.
Yep.
Okay? And there were 2 chargers on the floor, and there was 1 extension cord unattended. So this is still a major problem that we face in this community, and we've got to really get our security people on the ball to get out there and go through these buildings.
Right. And they've got the teeth now because it's going to start costing people money.
Okay.
If they don't take care of it.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a vote. Call the question. Two people haven't voted. There we go. Any other votes? There we go.
And Director Carpenter. Bunny, Director Carpenter, did you vote?
I did twice.
I did 3 times before it worked.
Voter fraud.
You didn't push hard enough.
There it is. She got it. She got it. She got it.
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
Okay.
Push hard.
Okay. We're at 12D. Boy, this is long. Okay, here we go. Entertain a motion amending standard for enclosing common atrium wall to require a variance. Resolution. Initial 30-day notification requirement for member comments and suggestions has been satisfied.
Okay. Here again, I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. Whereas the proposed policy would require the owners of Cordoba and Valencia-style manors to follow the variance process and guidelines, which would require more neighbor participation and review by the Architectural Standards and Control Committee, and now therefore be it resolved on September 19th, 2017, the Board of Directors of this corporation require that any future atrium enclosures on Cordoba and Valencia-style manors which share a common wall be approved by the board, and resolve further, the mutual continues to require a non-sleeping certificate from the city of Laguna Woods, and resolve further, the mutual requires a neighborhood awareness notice of hearings on alterations at manor for variance applications. I so move.
Do I have a second? Is there commentary? Anybody want to make comment? If not, let's vote.
What is a non-sleeping certificate?
Pardon me?
What is a non-sleeping certificate?
You do not allow a bedroom.
Yeah.
You
Not make-
can't,
Oh, you can't,
can't sleep in that.
you can't create an
A
identity
bedroom.
matter. Go out, got it.
Can't stop you from
Knots.
sleeping.
Okay.
Okay,
We've
so
got
we need
7
Director
votes. We need-
Frankel
we
and
need a couple
Director
more votes.
Carpenter for their votes. And Director Carpenter for your vote?
Push harder.
Yeah, got to get,
There.
okay.
All right.
Okay, moving to agenda item 12E. Entertain a motion to suspend cable internet in the event of disciplinary action, resolution. Initial 30-day notification requirement for member comments and suggestions has been satisfied.
I'm sorry? No, let me first read something, then as part of it, I'll make the motion, and then you can.
I know,
comment.
we're on a roll. We're trying
Okay.
to do this. I know, it's,
We've talked about this before. Essentially, what this does is give the board the power directly, where GRF, we formerly had to go to GRF to suspend cable and internet for people who have committed various infractions. Now therefore, be it resolved, September 19th, 2017, that the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation Corporation and the Board of Directors for each of the housing mutuals each possess the power to take disciplinary action against their respective mutual members, including but not limited to the suspension of cable television and internet services. I so move.
no discussion, let's take a vote. There you go, Bunny got it. All right. All right. Agenda item 12F. Entertain a motion to approve general requirements for alterations on 3-story buildings with mutual solar panels. Resolution, initial 30-day notification requirement for members, comments, and suggestions has been satisfied.
Here again, I'll read the critical paragraph. Therefore, be it resolved on September 19th, 2017, any proposed alteration to the roof of a 3-story building, excuse me, submitted to the Manor Alterations Division, which has mutual-owned solar panels installed, will require the contractor to supply site-specific structural calculations wet stamped by a licensed structural engineer, confirming the structural adequacy of the roof structure to support any additional imposed loads or roof penetrations proposed with the alteration. I move.
Do I have a second? John? John second it? John Frankel? Any discussion?
Yes.
All right, Bert?
It has come to the attention, at least of myself and some members of the board, that the roofs of these buildings are common area. And as a result, we really have to comply with the Davis-Sterling Act, which would require anybody desiring to put solar on their roof, okay, to get approval of 67% of the members of their HOA. Now, currently, there is a bill in process, okay, which will change that ruling and basically create an exception, but that bill has not passed. So members of this community should be made aware that we really will not be able to approve any subsequent solar installations, okay, until this bill has become law, unless they are willing to go out and follow the procedure of going out and requesting 67% of the neighbors of their HOA to approve it.
Okay.
So I think you've got to be aware of this.
Right. I want to point out because Lynn's here, and Ed's here too. I know Stuart was very concerned about his building, somebody not being able to put an HVAC system on there. This resolution, I want to make clear, does not say you can't do it. It means, though, that you have to come to staff and they have to analyze the situation. If an HVAC unit were to interfere with the solar panels, we would probably deny it. But that doesn't mean that somebody can't come before the M&C or the Architectural Control Committee and ask for a variance to put some kind of unit on one of those buildings that has solar on it. Okay? Yeah, Bert?
Yeah, I would, putting an air conditioner up there would not require the 67% because an air conditioner would fall into the issue of being de minimis, which would enable the committee to approve and the board to approve.
Right. So an air conditioner in there. Okay. Any other comments? Bert?
You raise a good issue. I suggest that we bring it up with our legal counsel to see how we proceed in this manner. There's a whole question of common area, et cetera.
Good idea. If there are no more other comments, I'll take a vote.
Apologize, I must have been on the wrong. Suspend cable. Did I miss something somewhere?
Let's do it by hand. All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 12G, entertain a motion to approve the 2018 third business plan resolution.
I think this is worth reading in a little detail, and since it is new or relatively new, you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to mention the numbers involved, because I think it's very important for the people in our mutual to understand what our budget requires, what it's made of, how we're spending it, and where we're getting the money. All the details, and I'm sure Steve can add to this, are actually a breakdown is on the agenda, item 12G, page 3 of 19, which explains in great detail where the money is coming from and how we're spending it. And I think that those of you who are at home or are interested can go to our website and find that. Resolved September 19th, 2017, that the business plan of this corporation for the year 2018 is hereby adopted and approved, and resolved further that pursuant to said business plan, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby estimates that the net sum of $32,033,719 is required by the corporation to meet the Third Laguna Hills operating expenses and reserve contributions for the year 2018. In addition, the sum of $14,539,717 is required by the corporation to meet the Golden Rain Foundation and the Golden Rain Foundation Trust operating expenses and reserve contribution for the year 2018. Therefore, a total of $46,573,436 is required to be collected from and paid by members of the corporation as monthly assessments, and resolve further that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby approves expenditures from the reserves in the sum of $13,161,207, of which $10,955,137 is planned from the replacement fund, $330,189 from the elevator replacement fund, $59,402 from the laundry replacement fund, $1,747,340 from the disaster fund, and $69,139 from the Garden Villa Recreation Room Fund. And resolve further that all funds paid into the replacement reserves shall be used for capital expenditures only and shall be credited on the books of account of the corporation to be paid in surplus as a capital contribution, and resolve further that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby determines and establishes monthly assessments of the corporation as shown on each member's breakdown of monthly assessments for the year 2018 and as filed in the records of the corporation. Said assessments to be due and payable by the members of this corporation on the first day of each month for the year 2018, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move.
Second. Any discussion? We have the experts sitting in the room, if you have any questions. If not, let's take a vote.
Thank you, Betty.
Hit those buttons hard.
Wait, did you get me?
There you go. We got it. This passed. Agenda item 12H, entertain a motion to approve the 2018 third reserve funding plan resolution.
Okay. Whereas Civil Code 5570 requires specific reserve funding disclosure statements for common interest developments, whereas planned assessments or other contributions to replacement reserves must be projected to ensure balances will be sufficient at the end of each year to meet the corporation's obligations for repair and/or replacement of major components during the next 30 years, and now therefore be it resolved, September 19th, 2017, that the board has developed and hereby adopts the replacement reserves 30-year funding plans attached with the objective of maintaining replacement reserve balances at or above established thresholds totaling $8,050,000 while meeting its obligations to repair and/or replace major components, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move.
I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? If not, we can take a vote. Agenda item 12I, entertain a motion to approve amendments to the 2018 collection and lien enforcement policy. Resolution, initial notification, postpone 30 days for member comments and suggestions to conform to the notification requirement.
Okay, I'll just read the critical paragraph again, or a few. Whereas legal counsel has reviewed the existing collection and lien enforcement policy and recommends some clarifying language, and the late charge is proposed to increase from a flat fee of $20 to $60 per month per delinquency pursuant to Civil Code 56050B2, which allows the association to recover a late charge not exceeding 10% of delinquent assessments. Now therefore be it resolved September 19, 2017, that the Board of Directors hereby adopts the 2018 Third Laguna Hills Mutual Collection and Lien Enforcement Policy as attached to the official minutes of this meeting. Resolve further, the policy statement is provided pursuant to the requirements of California Civil Code, Section 5310A7, and will be distributed to members in November 2017 as part of the annual policy statement. Resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move.
We have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see who we go on speakers. Bert Moldow?
The wording of the resolution calls for distribution to members, okay? This should read owners, not members. We have members, okay, who are not owners, and therefore, we could not be collecting from them. It is the owner of the manor, okay, that is charged, and therefore, we need to rectify the wording of this resolution.
Bunny Carper and then Bert Baum.
Okay, in the policy, there is
Turn on your mic, please.
in the policy, there is some editing. And then on page 5 of 16, it still says 20, even though she changed the figure. It should say 60. Okay, and the other thing that I suggest, okay, is on page 11 of 16.
But you're on 12I, we're on 13A.
We're on 12I,
We're on
John.
12I.
We're moving fast, John.
Yeah, okay. So then on page 11 of 16, and it's on the secondary address, okay? The only thing that I am going to suggest is at the end of that sentence that we add by certified mail. And the only reason I'm saying that is so that we don't assume that we can send a letter if it doesn't reach the owner or we don't have the owner's address, okay, for a secondary address, that staff also understands that they have to send a certified mail. So it's only for clarification, not correction, only for clarification. So those are my suggestions.
Are these being captured, these comments? These comments? Now, procedurally, this has got a 30-day commentary period coming up. Are we going to make these changes?
Yeah, so we'll make them, and when it comes to your, I think you're going to have a special meeting in October just for business. We'll go ahead and put it on that calendar, and then we'll change paragraph 4 where it says resolve further. It should say distributed to members/owners.
Bert, go ahead.
This collection policy, we renew every year, and we use the language essentially that's in here. And I would say, and this collection policy was reviewed by Brian Marino, who is one of our members of the legal staff. And I think this discussion of whether it should be members or owners is another issue we can discuss directly with our legal staff. I don't think, I understand your sensitivity to this, Bert. I don't think that the lawyers think that it's not correct, because we've gone through this before. We can discuss it. We can discuss it.
So do you want to discuss this in closed session today?
Yeah, but we don't have to change the resolution. We don't have
No,
to change.
I know.
Yeah, we could
But
just,
I agree.
we could just bring this up.
But okay, all right. We take a vote. Bert, did you have one more comment?
Yeah, on the staff recommendation, I think staff should be made aware in the background statement that they made, legal remedies for default in payment of its assessments against its shareholders. Okay, we are a co-op, we are rather not a co-op. We do not have shareholders. So I think in the future, staff ought to be aware of that and not use that term. Yeah. Okay?
Okay,
Question?
yes.
Call for the question.
Oh, you don't have a question, you call for a question, okay. We need to take a vote, please. We got, everybody voted, it passed. Agenda item 13, new business.
There's 12J.
Pardon me, I didn't write it down. Committee assignments.
So
Okay.
12J is adding some advisors to certain committees. I have Steve Leonard for M&C. I have Bob Hatch for Architectural Control and Standards Committee. I don't have the woman's name for landscaping. Do you have it?
Yes, her name is Violet Lawrence.
Violet Lawrence, okay.
Violet, and the last name is spelled Lawrence.
I also have corrections. On Third Mutual Parking, it is John Franco that is the chair of that committee. On Projects Task Force, Rose Marie is the chair of that committee. And Golf Cart Parking Task Force, we have Annette Soul as chair of that committee.
Where is that?
It's in here.
Okay, I think we got them, plus those 3 advisors.
So,
Where is that?
it's up under,
It's not on there.
Where is, where is it looking
it's
at?
actually under 5B,
Which one?
5B.
So subject to those 3 changes and the 3 advisors, if you're in concurrence, somebody could make a motion and
I don't see
we'll get
that.
that changed.
I so moved.
Where is that?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to ask about the advisors on the landscaping committee. Are those 2 gentlemen still on the committee? I haven't really met them.
Well, still there, but they have not show up for a long time.
And one of them has moved.
We removed one of them.
Yeah, one of them moved from Third Mutual. Let me get his name for you.
Because he,
And while we're revising this,
John Dudley has moved from Third Mutual, so you can remove him.
yeah, right. And under the Energy and Technology Committee, this is something I've been remiss in. Leon St. Hilaire has resigned as an advisor. Okay. Do we need to, we don't need to vote on that, do we? Do we need to vote on that? All right.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Request to speak.
Sure, you can speak. Let me look who the speakers are. I've got Susie Kane and then Annette. Susie just deleted herself. Okay, go ahead, Annette.
Okay, the only correction I wanted to make was on the golf cart parking task force that I'm sure of. It's the Garden Villa Golf Cart Parking Task Force.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. Do I have it? Did I ever get a second on that?
No.
yes.
You got a second on that?
No, he's the motion, so we need a
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, we had discussion before we had the second, but it's my failure because I didn't write this down. Didn't catch that when I did it. Okay, let's take a vote.
James.
One more, there we go. All right, now we can go to new business, agenda item 13. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve manner alteration conditions, initial notification, postpone 30 days for member comments and suggestions to conform to the notification requirement. 13A.
Whereas staff has experienced several issues with manor alterations, including illegal dumping in village dumpsters, excessive noise and smoking by contractors, parking in resident spaces by contractors, damage to mutual property during construction and working after hours, and whereas the standard manner alteration conditions impose requirements in order to protect the mutual and members and neighbors or members who wish to conduct alterations. And now therefore be it resolved, September 19th, 2017, as part of the conditions of approval, a conformance deposit, good faith deposit, is being required, and resolve further, a conformance deposit will be held to assure no damages to mutual property occurs during construction, including but not limited to internet TV, landscaping or exterior walls, roof, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move.
Do we have a second? Got a second? Any discussion?
Sorry, who seconded?
James Tone. If there's no,
Too fast.
no, you did well. If there's no discussion, then let's take a vote. Two more votes. Well, one, there we go. Unanimous? Okay. Let's move on to agenda item 13B. Entertain a motion to approve manner alteration conformance deposit fee resolution. Initial notification, postpone 30 days for member comments and suggestions to conform to the notification requirement.
Whereas in order to partially offset mutual costs associated with contractors and residents performing, not preforming, alterations that damage mutual property or violate mutual policies, such as disposing of construction debris in mutual dumpsters, and whereas the mutual currently does not require any conformance deposit fee captures, and now therefore be it resolved, the fee will be required for all construction with a value of $500 or greater and will be refundable given that the contractor or resident performing the alterations conform to all mutual rules and standards. Now, therefore be it resolved that in order to partially further offset mutual costs associated with contractors and residents performing alterations to their manor, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby sets the conformance deposit fee at $250 and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? Bert?
I wish to amend this resolution, paragraph 3, and after the last word standards, include the statement, "and causes no damage to mutual property."
You got that recorded? Any other,
Third paragraph.
any other comments?
That's a weird
Yeah. Third paragraph.
I have a question related to this. How does this resolution, what's the difference between this resolution and the previous one?
It appears to me that this one actually discusses the actual monetary.
Well, couldn't we put this all in one resolution and make life simpler? My only question.
Well, why would you want to make
So,
life simple?
so we don't, the fee, we're keeping the fee separate, and that way we don't have to amend the conditions every time we amend the fee.
Good plan. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
We didn't get a second yet on my.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right.
We vote on
take
the
a vote?
amendment.
But we
First
we
vote
got
on
the
the
amendment, yeah, that's true. Vote on the motion as amended? And that should satisfy the vote. I don't think do we have to vote a second time?
It
on the
wasn't, he
resolution?
didn't say he moved, so unless I'm hearing I moved, I didn't do it as a motion, but we can.
We did it, by reading entertain a motion, he reads it, and then we have a second.
No, I'm talking about Director Muldown. He said he would like to, but he didn't say that he was
I make
moving
a
to do
motion to.
so. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's where I'm getting confused with you, is whether it's actually just a
Actually
statement
discussion or
or
whether
a
it's-
physical motion. So if you can say I move when you want to make a motion, that would help me out and understand where we're
Sorry
going.
about that.
Thank you. No,
Okay.
that's okay. Thank you.
I do.
You have to realize that Leslie has just gone to law school, so she's.
So here we are. If we voted on the motion as amended, then we come back and we have to vote on the motion itself. So, everybody vote when you get your opportunity.
So who seconded that one? Because Bert, okay,
John
so
Frankel.
I thought she also did the original motion? Okay, that's not.
Steve seconded the original.
That's what. Okay.
Steve Parsons second.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so go ahead and commence voting.
All right. Okay, votes in, unanimous, 9-0. Under new business, item 13C, entertain a motion to approve an increase in manner alteration processing fees. Resolution, initial notification, postpone 30 days for member comments and suggestions to conform to the notification requirements.
Whereas in order to partially offset mutual costs associated with contractors and residents performing alterations that damage mutual property or violate mutual policies, such as disposing of construction debris in mutual dumpsters. And whereas the mutual currently does not require any conformance deposit fee capture, and now therefore be it resolved, the fee will be required for all construction with a wait a second, is this? I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong.
13C, Bert.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's my error. This is proposed variance process fee policy. Whereas variance requests require significant staff time for proper processing, including research, report preparation, and then presentation to the appropriate committee and then the board. And whereas in order to offset administrative costs associated with processing variance requests, which is often followed by multiple resubmittals and can be followed by an appeal to the board as mandated in accordance with Resolution 0313105. And whereas the mutual currently charges a $10 fee for mutual consent and a $100 fee for a variance to offset administrative costs associated with processing these requests. And whereas the board realizes that the current fee does not appropriately cover staff time, now therefore be it resolved that in order to come closer to partially offsetting administrative costs associated with processing variance requests, which is often followed by multiple resubmittals and can be followed by an appeal to the board as mandated in accordance with Resolution 0313105, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby sets the mutual consent request processing fee at $35 and the variance request processing fee at $150, and resolve further that Resolution 031544, adopted April 21st, 2015, is hereby superseded and canceled, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move.
I have a second. Discussion. If no discussion, we take a vote. One more vote. And one abstain. Okay. 8 yes, 1 abstention. Resolution passes. Wow, we got through all of those, folks. Now we're into the committee reports. Item 14. You know, I'm not that hungry, but we are going to run into that closed meeting if we spend a lot of time. I think it's important that we go through real quickly, but if you can hit the highlights of it. Steve, I know you probably got an extensive report you probably need to talk about, but most of us who can just say the highlights of what we've got will probably serve us best. Okay, number 14A. Maybe I should read this. Committee reports. Before an action item is open for discussion, a motion and a second must be recognized by the chair. After the board discusses the issues, the chair addresses the issues. The chair will open the floor for the audience for comment. A member may only address the chair once for each agenda item. There is a maximum time limit of 3 minutes on item for the board. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted. Given our short time, I would like to reduce that if somebody wants to come up and make a comment. In the meantime, we're going to go to 14A, report of the Finance Committee. Steve Parsons.
Okay, can I have the slides for financial report, please? Slide 1. Total revenue for Third Mutual through July 31st, 2017 was $19,387,000 compared to expenses of $15,046,000, resulting in more revenue than expense by $4,341,000. Slide 2, please. Now we look at those same results with a distinction between operating and funds. This chart shows how much of the revenue went into operations, with $10,739,000 coming in from assessments and $614,000 coming in from other sources such as resident violations and insurance reimbursements. This is compared to operating expenditures of $10,941,000. After backing out depreciation, which is not funded through operations, we can see that the bottom line, we had an operating surplus of $501,000 as of the reporting period. Slide 3, please. This chart shows how much of the revenue went into our reserve funds and the amount expended to date. Slide 4, please. Through July, Third was better than budgeted by $3,008,000, primarily due to the timing of reserve programs. First one is building structure contract was awarded in July. Work started in August at buildings 3336, 3371, 4025, 4026, and building 5372. Number two, waistline replacement work is currently in progress. Invoices will be reflected on August financial statements. Number three, the roofing program is currently in process. The budget is distributed evenly throughout 2017. However, work did not start until May. I also may want to add in here that there are several other contracts that will be worked on now, and some work has started, others will be ginned up soon. Slide 5, please. On this pie chart, we show the operating expenses to date of $10.9 million by category, showing that our largest categories of expenses are for compensation and utilities. Slide 6, please. The reserve balances on July 31st, 2017 were nearly $28.6 million. To date, contribution to reserves, including assessments and interest earnings, totaled just over $8 million, and expenditures to date totaled $4.1 million. Additionally, fund transfers from operating surpluses totaled $409,000 as approved by the board in June via Resolution 03-1769. As mentioned previously, much of the increase is due to timing, reserve program expenditures, and that are anticipated later in the year. That's all the slides, please. In the closing session, we reviewed delinquencies and unpaid assessments totaling nearly $300,000, which represents less than 1% of the annual assessment budget. We're able to maintain such a relatively low level of discrepancies by following prescribed collection procedures that I may reference you heard earlier to pursue payment of these accounts, either through non-judicial foreclosure processes or by obtaining personal judgments in small claims court. The board has been working closely with our collection firm and legal counsel to pursue further collection activity for unpaid accounts. Moving on to our real estate report. For all mutuals, activity through August, sales this year is 90 compared to 104 for last year at this time. Here again, for all mutuals through August, the total volume in sales was $29,277,000 compared to $32,699,000 for last year. Average resale price for all mutuals through August was $325,306 compared to last year of $314,414,000. I would mention that the open inventory at the end of August was approximately 160 units. Now for Third Mutual, as of the end of August, the number of resales was 47 this year compared to 56 last year. Total sales volume for this year, $17,967,000 compared to last year, $21,085,000. Average price has gone up by 12.7%. This year, that stands at $382,200 compared to last year, $376,500. The last thing I'll mention is concerning our amount of leasing, which stands at 27%, but it is steadily increasing. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Item 14B, report of the Architectural and Standards Committee. Bert Moldow.
Okay. We all know that we have had this situation where giving away common areas is no longer a fact in this community, and that it takes 67% of a vote. Well, we have initiated a test case in one of the smaller mutuals in cooperation with a member who wishes an alteration. And we're going to try to establish a procedure to help people who do want to proceed with alterations to get the 67% vote. So this is in the process. Most of the work done by the committee was voted on the consent calendar. So you already heard that this has all been approved. And you also heard that we voted on the proposed fee schedules that we've made changes. So you pretty much heard everything except the one thing that's still missing, which is the decision tree. The decision tree is very, very close to being complete. It's in its final stages, and hopefully we'll have it available for the next board meeting to vote on. And that, other than the fact that the meeting date for next meeting, I mean, usually it's the first Monday, and we're setting that back now to the fourth Monday of every month. So the next meeting will be September the 25th in the Sycamore Room. That's my report.
Thank you, Bert. 14C, report of the Maintenance and Construction Committee. Bert Muldown.
God.
Lucky guy.
Lucky guy, yeah. See if I can make this. Okay. Boy, oh boy. See if I can knit it down. Well, okay. The committee reviewed both the project logs and the maintenance programs reports and approved them. We had a situation where we had to approve or make recommendations for the parapet wall removal on the Villa Parisha and Casa Grande buildings because of the issue that those created for the introduction of dry rot. We also discussed painting of repairs associated with moisture intrusion. And for the garden villas, we investigated the use of epoxy on the floors, and it was decided that we would go with carpeting in the rec room, but we would investigate epoxy for the kitchen and bathroom areas. We are moving ahead with the sign programs for garden villas and LH21s. We have basically, we're expecting a report from the Garden Villa Association with regard to their recommendations on location of these signs. Some of these signs will be mounted on a foundation-type arrangement, okay, and other signs may be located on buildings. And we're asking the members of each of these buildings to come forth and make a recommendation on where they think the sign should go. And the last thing is we expect to vote today in closed session on the acquisition of the Southern California Edison streetlights. And that'll take place this afternoon. It must, by the way, be concluded, the contract, before October the 12th. If we do not, then we forfeit any right to purchase those lights. So it is believed that the economics well justify that we purchase those lights and the advantage that we see in our ability afterward of being able to replace the current sodium lighting with LEDs will provide us with a very significantly enhanced improvement in lighting for the community. Something which, by the way, if you go back, has been a shortcoming in the community since its advent. The handicap, or the handyman program, originally we were going to talk with, go up to Walnut Creek to talk to the Walnut Creek people, since they've had a handyman program in effect since, for about 6 years, to find out just how well it works and how they do it. We're going to save the community some money, and we're going to now try TV conferencing. So that's coming up very shortly, and we hope to get sufficient information where we can basically decide what it is that we want to do for offering a handyman program, what services we want to do, what we don't want to do, how do we want to organize it? Do we want a handyman program that it's a separate corporation to avert liability, or can we take out insurance? There's a lot of questions that still have to be answered before we can get around to it. And later item, thing that will be important, by the way, for the next meeting, I hope, will be the laundry room water heater alternatives. United has replaced their water heaters within their laundry rooms with essentially 20-gallon tanks, which is a significant reduction in the size of the tanks that we currently use within our buildings and within our laundry rooms. And if we can do that, we can save some significant money in energy costs. And there are several other things. Non-wood alternatives for dry rot. We basically have already passed a ruling which says, in order to avoid future dry rot, we want to have all non-wood surfaces on external buildings. So we're going to do whatever we can to remove wood and replace it with things that are not subject to dry rot or mold. And that's my report. And the next meeting, this committee is November the 6th. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Bert. For item 14D, agenda item 14, a report of the Landscape Committee, James Tung.
Well, actually, I asked Bunny to report for me, since
Okay.
I wasn't here for
All right,
a
Bunny,
long time.
thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna make it short. We have reports on the
Did
slope
you
update.
turn on your microphone? Thank you.
We had reports on the slope update, and we were shown on the slides the examples of work that had been done and the work that remains for later this fall and winter. On the irrigation report, this is with the moisture sensors, and the pilot is still going on, and will expect it to go on for several more months. They're only seeing a slight difference in the cost. And so it'll really be questionable as whether we will go forward using the soil sensors in the future. But we can only tell till after we've done a complete pilot on it. The Arbor Pro update, the data set has been received and installed, and the system, and we've talked about this several times before, will help guide the tree trimming. So in other words, the tree trimming at this point in time is every 2 years, we go through the process of trimming the trees, whereas with Arbor Pro, we are now going to be trimming trees as necessary based upon the species. So you'll see some trees that are going to be trimmed every year, some that are going to be trimmed, every 2 years based upon the species. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the resolution task force. And we are going to be updating the resolution for the balconies in the 3-story buildings, the breezeways. And because what happened is there is going to be cement that is going to be applied onto these breezeways in lieu of the AstroTurf. And so it created several issues, especially with the Garden Villa people. One is they've got to be communicated what can happen with their plants. They're going to be removed, and what can happen to their plants when they move them back. And we have several violators. In other words, there's too much furniture or too much plants on some of the breezeways. So we're meeting to be able to determine a plan going forward on how to handle that. That's it. Oh, I want to say one more thing. The items for the future agenda is a modernization project, which will actually start in 2018. It will follow the prior to the paint. And basically, when a building is painted, it damages the landscaping. And so this budget is basically to do more than what they've done in the past, just maybe to replace the landscaping. And then we have suggested that staff prepare a tree replacement program and a compliance enforcement. That's it. Oh, the next meeting is gonna be November 2nd. We're not having an October meeting.
Thank you, Bunny.
All right, you're welcome.
Move on to item 14E, report of Laguna Woods Village traffic hearings. John Frankel.
We had 4 stop sign violations, all guilty. We had 3 speeding violations, all guilty. We had 1 expired reservation, guilty, 1 parking violation, guilty, and 1 member had 11 violations dealing with contractor overnight parking and decals and expired reservations. He experienced about $400 in fines. That's the extent of my report.
Well, thank you, John. That was short and sweet.
You asked it to be short.
Thank you. Okay. 14F, item 14F, report of the Communications Committee. Bert Baum.
I want to encourage people to come to our Communication Committee meeting. We don't fine anybody. So just come and you walk out with as much money as you came in. But our whole object is to get better communication between the boards, between the management, among the community in general. And one of the ways we work on that is through the Breeze. We have a number of people on the committee, particularly Susan Kane, who are working on the Breeze to make our communication even better. So if you have any ideas about what you would like to see, please let us know. You can write me or Susan, anyone, and let us know how we can do a better job. The things I want to point out to you is we had some question today about our leasing policy and how does it work. And it's a very cumbersome, very thick, legalistic document. We realize that. And we've asked our ACE communication staff to come up with a handout that would simplify this. They're working on it assiduously, I've been told. But we have formed a committee, and what we want to do is be able to hand the residents a 1 or 2 page document which outlines what steps they have to go through in order to simplify it. It sounds very onerous, to use Bill's favorite word, but it really isn't if you want to get this leasing. And we're going to follow up with, we have a task force on residency, and we're going to follow up on that through the task force too. The other issues related to communication, one is the Team Up app that most of us have. The Team Up app lists all the meetings in the community, all the meetings by the board and committee. You can get that. We recommend that you get that. It lists the times and the agenda if you click on it. And so we encourage members to get it. There's supposed to be an article in the Breeze this September. I hope that's coming forth, which explains how Team Up works and how members can get it. The other new thing that's going on, we're not directly related on it, but I'd like to point that out to everyone, is now we are participating in Facebook and YouTube. So if you are on Facebook, you can become a friend of Laguna Woods Village and get inundated with all our good stuff. And also YouTube. If you go to our website, which has really been improved, you can click on YouTube and get things that are exclusively related to this community. And the last thing, I'm in touch with a woman who's had a lot of experience professionally on surveys. We're going to have her talk possibly to our committee so that we have a better understanding on how to carry out surveys and how to measure them. And our next meeting will be October 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Item 14G, which is the report of the Energy and Technology Committee. We did not have a meeting in the month of September. Our next meeting will be October 3rd, 2 weeks from today. I will say one thing, that we are going to be discussing a contract that we're trying to piggyback with GRF on, with US Energy, to do some surveys for us of the walkway lighting in gates 5 and 6, and we'll be discussing that in closed session. And that's all I have for now. Move to 14H, the report of the Water Committee. James Tung.
Yes, but don't get scared, Leslie. I have a PowerPoint, but only 2 slides, very quickly. Well, the first one is as a plumbing department and our, committee, we're always chasing on the rules, the meters, was tier 3, tier 4 water bills. So if the first slide shows that but good news, the plumbing department is chasing 6 meters, which shows that last month, June, your report was a very high tier 4 units used, but then in July, say 4 of them become 0, and even the other 2, but being reduced. However, since we're an old, community, the one fix, the new one's coming up. So the plumbing department is going to work on those 3, 3458, that they're the top 3 tier 4 users, and the plumbing department is going to help us to fix the leaking. So because of that, some goes, some come. So the second slides summarize that if you look at the bottom of the residential side, that June, July residential part, the tier 4, tier 3, tier 4 is comparable. But I want to, Laura, maybe you can help us. I don't understand why at the winter time we still have this high irrigation water bills. Please, talk to Kurt. I talked to him. Reduce the amount of water. Now it's weather's been cooling down, so no reason to. Especially now everything's overgrown. We don't need to add that much water, and that's all for the water. Thank you.
Well, thank you, James. Report of the Resident Policy and Compliance Task Force. Bert Baum.
Okay, we haven't met for a while, but we're going to have a meeting this Monday. It's going to be at 1:30. This is going to be a special meeting, and I invite all the board members to attend, in which we're going to have Christine Spar from the head of our Resident Services and Community Services Department. She's going to come in, and we're going to talk about 3 specific areas. One is leasing. We want to know how is that going. We're getting some feedback here at our meetings. 2 would be the new caretaker policy. How is that working out? These have been big changes in the community. Change is difficult. We want to know what the problems are and what we can do better. And the third thing we're going to ask her about is resident services issues. So if you have an issue here with resident services, let us know. We will certainly try to discuss it. We want to get a better handle on how resident services is functioning, where they're going, what their issues are, and how we can help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. We're on to agenda item 15, GRF committee highlights. In the interest of time, if we've got some real, if anybody's got any significant information from one of those committee meetings, John?
GRF M&C, they have a very, very compressed pickleball schedule. In fact, I made the issue that I think it's not doable, but anyway, they're ready to launch and pull a building permit of the first week in November. Also, lawn bowling is launching.
Can I ask, John, what essentially are they gonna do in pickleball? Are they building those 6 courts?
We're going to build 6 new courts.
Okay.
The only other thing is I've saw something in my box about the architects for the Performing Arts Center. And they're going to have I think there's a special meeting next week. You might want to check your calendars. I can't remember the date.
We had a
but,
meeting yesterday. I guess I'm the only one, although I thought Steve was on the committee, but I'm the
Okay.
only one that seems to go. And it's very, very involved, and it's going to take a while before we can pull this thing all together. It's extremely involved with the numbers of alternatives.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way from what little I looked at it. All right, if that does that, I'm going to go down here, and we've got a future agenda item under item 16. We're standard for trellis removal. You working on that in M&C, Bert? Yeah. Okay. Any director's comments, or do you want to go to lunch? Okay, we're going to call a recess to this meeting. We're going to resume the meeting in the Willow Room. And thank you very much. It was very good.
Thank you. Nice going.
Thanks.